Hello, everybody. Another one of the I am talking videos, in which the idea is through talking about the I am to open up to it more. And I do this mostly for myself because I am pretty lazy when it comes to enlightenment or realizing that I exist. I rarely do it. I mostly am in my thoughts, especially my negative thoughts. I find myself so interesting, especially when there's some sort of drama, lack, or some sort of negative trajectory. I find that fascinating, and then I'm sucked into it, and I want to do things, resist, distract myself, or solve the problem, right? And the counter idea to that is to tune into the I am and see that everything is happening in my awareness or in awareness. There's actually not a single object in that awareness that is me, right? And I think just today I want to go deeper in future videos in this about this object thing, because I personally, that's my favorite part of the I am is that there is actually no me in the objects. I mean, there is no object that is me, and everything that is perceivable is an object. I find that super funny and super cool. Oh, let's stick to that for this video, and then the other things come in future videos. So there's also this idea of Neti Neti, right? Neti Neti, from my understanding, means not this, not that. And it relates to trying to find me, right? So I can start with the obvious stuff like, am I my car, my house, blah blah blah. And I think most people are beyond this already, right? They know that they are not their house, not their car, right? But then as we get more within, it gets more tricky. So then am I my family, right? And that is already like a big identification, I think, because it's my bloodline, right? And like my family has a lot of my similar traits to myself, so there's a relation. We're obviously kind of the same type of people, and and so the Neti Neti goes and then says, well, is it though? Is it me though, right? And then maybe we have a causality, or like how we wanna prove that my family is me, is because I love my family, right? And I have a sweet feeling and a trust in my body when I think about my family. So that means that it's me, right? So then, from the I am perspective, this is a happening, right? So the sweet feeling that I have relative to my family starts at some point, right? When I think about my family, it's when it starts, right? And then it stops when I start thinking about something else, kind of, right? Or you could argue that the sweet feeling to my family is always there. I just don't see it always, maybe, right? But it's hard to, like, 24 hours a day have a sweet feeling towards my family, right? So it's probably finite, this feeling, right? So we have a finite feeling that mostly happens when I think about my family. And that is the proof that I am my family, right? Or that's one of the proofs. Maybe we have more proof lined up, right? So then when I look at it, it's like, okay, but I look at that feeling, right? I look at the feeling, the sweet feeling for my family. So I can kind of see the sweet feeling for my family, right? It's almost like the sweet feeling for my family happens in space and time in a way, right? Because when I imagine it, there's like the sweet feeling for my family a little bit, right? And then outside of that feeling, there's not the sweet feeling for my family. So it's almost like the sweet feeling for my family has coordinates, right? So it's finite in terms of time, and it's also finite in terms of space a little bit, right? So I can watch it. I can like, ooh, this is the sweet feeling for my family. There it is. I can even visualize it, right? I visualize maybe a cloud, right? So there's a cloud of sweet feeling for my family that is finite in terms of time and finite in terms of space. And I watch it, right? And the cat is kind of blocking the camera. So then, how am I it, right? So then there's a larger space that makes it possible that the sweet feeling for my family is happening. And I'm supposed to be that feeling, right? I'm not supposed to be the space, right? So then maybe the logic would be, okay, God is the space and I am that feeling. But I am watching the feeling. I'm literally watching the feeling. Like I am kind of the space in which the feeling happens, right? If you look at it, how do I know there's a space in which the feeling is happening in, right? How is it possible that I am the feeling, the sweet feeling for my family, if I am watching it? How can I watch from inside of the feeling? Because I look at it from outside, kind of. If I wouldn't see that the feeling, sweet feeling for my family, would be finite in terms of time and space, then it's more likely that I am it. But if I can already see, okay, it starts and it ends, then I can be in it, right? I can only see it from outside, right? So that is one way of kind of looking at it and to see that, okay, how can I be any object then, right? And that kind of neti neti looking at it, right? We can do with anything, and then we kind of almost like dismiss all of the things, right? And then we end up with just awareness looking at itself, kind of, right? And then even going beyond awareness. So then another thing that I always, to this day, because I'm not claiming like I'm enlightened or whatever, I just claim that I am is important to me, and I want it more and more in my life. Kind of, I want to make space for it more and more, so that I identify more with the I am than with the objects. That's my goal. I'm not claiming anything, just talking about it. I'm not even teaching, right? So then, but what I always like, the conspiracy that I am totally falling for is that my face, right? So when I look at my videos, for example, right, I rewatch it before I upload it, right, and then I look at my face, there's something about my face that seems to be me, because my voice comes out of my face, and my face has a look, and it has a expression, right? So there's that my face kind of represents my personality in a way, right? So there's something about this face that seems to be me, right? And then if somebody says you're ugly or you're good looking, I take it a little bit personal, that like I am good looking, I am ugly, right? But the same thing happens when you look at it with the sweet feeling for the family. The same thing happens with the face. It's just even more closer to what I think I am, right? Because sometimes I dream about my face, or I imagine my face in a sort of a story, right? Because that's so much me. Like when somebody says Moritz, I envision my face for a second, right? And that is very cool for me to see that I'm not even my face or my voice or my funny little, because when I think about myself, I think, okay, I have certain personality traits that others don't have, right? So I have maybe, like people say that I have a dry humor, right? So I think about, okay, this is this face with this voice with the dry humor, that's me, right? But is it though, right? So when we look at it, the or put it differently, like when we tune out, right? When we tune out and when we don't think about stuff, we close our eyes, or I close my eyes. Was the face there for the second, right? Was it? Right? Because if you think about it, how can anything be me that is not eternal? Right? That is a weird thing. Like, how can I not exist? Right? So then we have to really look if I have always existed. Has this face always existed, right? So then from like normal space-time, I was born someday, and at the beginning I didn't even have this funny face, right? I had a kind of a baby face, I had a small nose, not this nose, right? So the Moritz wasn't even fully there yet, right? So Moritz maybe appeared somewhere around age 3 to 8, somewhere, right? Or I mean, maybe sooner, but was he there before birth, right? So then we can have to kind of imagine that Moritz was on another planet, looking like this, talking like this, right? But even like in reincarnation circles, and I'm not saying that I believe in it or I don't believe in it, I'm just saying if we take on the theory of reincarnation, the way I understood it is if I was if I happened to live before, I was another person. I could have even been a woman, or maybe an extraterrestrial, or maybe even an animal, right? So there was not this face, right? So this face, like if we say this face happened around age 4, I'm 42 now, so this face is only 38 years old, right? So this face, can it be me if, first of all, it appeared after birth, right? So it's not even as old as my body is, right? So this funny face with this me thought and this voice is not even as old as this whole body, right? So can it be me then, right? So, and it's very tempting to say yes. But if I look at it, like, I can look at this face, and not just on video, I can look at it right now. I can look at it because I imagine it. I imagine this face actually. And then I can see that the imagination of this face happens. I can only see the imagination of this face because there's a sort of field of awareness, I amness, in which the face appears then, and the voice. How can I listen to my own voice? The voice doesn't listen to itself, right? The voice just happens. The voice is voicing, right? It's a sound. The sound doesn't listen to itself. The sound the sound exists so that it can be perceived by what? Right? And so that way I can see, like, if I really look at it, that I'm not even my face. I'm not even my eyes. And I'm not even the secret little me thought that says, you know what? I will survive this Neti Neti. After he does his whole Neti Neti thing, I will still be me. Not even that, because how can a thing be me? Because the me thought that thinks I am me happens in awareness, and it is finite. It kind of starts, it escalates, right? And then it changes, right? So then we have a formula. Me can't, like the true me can't be time bound, it can be space bound, and it can't really change in a way, right? Because if I am like, let's say this, right, and then I transform to a woman, right? So I have a facelift, my nose gets cut in half, my ears gets this, and I lose my chin somehow, and I take hormones, and I'm a woman. Then I'm a funny character as well, right? An interesting, hopefully beautiful character. But am I the same me, right? So then how is it possible that I am Moritz the man and Moritz the woman, or whatever name I have then, right? So then there has to be something experiencing Moritz the man and Moritz the woman, and so Moritz the man and Moritz the woman can't be me. That's my logic, right? I can only listen to it. I can look at them, right? And so I'm the looker then, right? So then we come even to the body, right? Because actually the face is even more close to what I want to be than my body, but my body is really insistent on being me, right? Because when I sit here right now, I have a feeling of my body, right? But when I look at it, it's actually like feelings in my muscles. So I don't feel my whole body, first of all, right? So I don't feel my liver unless it hurts, right? But I don't drink a lot of alcohol, so it rarely hurts, right? I don't experience the other intestines, most of them, right? Only maybe my belly a little bit sometimes. I don't experience like my brain as an object, right? I can kind of feel here on my skin or whatever, right? When I have a headache, but it's not, the headache isn't in the brain, right? So I don't feel my brain. So I just feel certain sensations in the muscles and on the skin, and then my imagination does the rest, right? My brain kind of makes a 3D model out of these sensations and out of past experience and what it knows about the physical body, right? So then when I look at it, it's actually the experience of my body is like 10% sensations, like very localized sensations, not even the whole body. I don't even feel my bones, right? Maybe I feel my where the bones meet a little bit, but the bone in itself, like can't feel in it, right? So I don't feel the bone, right? So I just feel certain sensations, and then out of these sensations and out of what I know, I make a visualization out of it. And then I look at that visualization and say, this is me. Right? How does that make sense? And even like, funny thought is when I would draw myself out of my sensations, I would be 90% head. Because I feel mostly my head. Like I feel mostly like my teeth, my gum always hurts around my eyes, my nose gets itchy because of allergies, right? And I don't know, I feel my head mostly like so. I would actually be 90% head and then 10% a little bit legs, right? And 0% bones or certain intestines, right? So that is all imagination. That is not really me. Like my body isn't anchored outside of space-time. It's a very space-bound, time-bound thing. So how can it be me, right? So this is kind of the Neti Neti approach as I understand it. And then you go even deeper, like my core assumptions, right? My core beliefs, my core personality, right? So the secret me that I even keep a little bit secret of myself, right? So then we go into like psychology, right? So the subconscious is the subconscious me. It's like the inner child me, right? So this feeling, this vulnerable feeling that my personality is built to not experience, not let anyone see this vulnerability, right? So that is then it's then the question, like, how am I really that inner child? Am I really like, when I like, let's say I had a bad day and I cry at night in my bed, I cry myself to sleep. That is really tempting to think that is me, right? That is my story, right? Nobody gets me, nobody understands me. I'm all alone on this world. This feeling, that has to be me, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't cry at that hard, right? But when I look at it, I can kind of see my inner child, right? I can kind of see these deep, vulnerable feelings. I can kind of see these deep, vulnerable me thoughts. I can kind of see the counter strategy building. I can kind of see the deep, deep vulnerability, right? So the deep, deep vulnerability happens also in space-time. It happens also in visualization and imagination, right? It's actually like something is looking at the inner child. Something is looking at this deep me thought. Something is looking at me thinking this is me. So is it me when I'm actually looking at me thinking this is me? Right? And so this is very, very, very vulnerable. I'm not saying trying to kind of smack the inner child and say, fuck off. No, no, no. Be as vulnerable. I mean, that's my attitude. I want to be as vulnerable and as empathic towards my inner child as possible. And even sometimes think I'm me, this is me, and work with this emotion and stuff. But how can I really do that if I'm not actually the field of awareness looking at it, looking at me working with the inner child? Right? So this is kind of the Neti Neti that I really love. And it's weird because the Neti Neti is not the most basic approach or not the most direct approach. The most direct approach is just tuning out and seeing that I'm awareness. Because like in the Neti Neti, we can also kind of get lost in the looking at objects, right? And then we're still in the world of objects, right? But I think it's a fun practice that dismantles and dismantles the whole matrix and stuff. And I really love the fact that this practice, this I am practice, kind of transcends the whole game and the whole STS and STO thing, right? I don't know if the listeners, like, if you are familiar with the law of one, but in the law of one, it's a chain of material from the 80s. There's STS and STO approach. And the goal is to go from third density, in which we are in, to fourth density. And you can get there by an STO approach, which means service to others, and an STS approach, which means service to self. So you can either serve the ego, or you can serve others and transcend the ego. Both is a valid approach to get to fourth density. And then it stays that way in fourth and fifth density, and in sixth density it gets dissolved and it's the same path again, right? So then the STS try to get control over everybody and power, because that's what the ego wants, is control and power over others. And the STO would kind of want to serve others and serve oneself, you know. But with this, and then the STS will always try to kind of have STO people switch sides to the STS world, right? But with this approach, it's actually out of, like, it transcends this whole game to me, because you're out of the game. Because if you are I am, right, you can only manipulate thoughts and feelings, right? You can manipulate thoughts and feelings of people to gain control and power over them, right? If you manipulate thoughts and feelings of people in a way that makes them act and make decisions that help you gain power, then you win the game as an STS, right? But so then it's hard to kind of convince an STO person to manipulate an STO person if they are really loving, right? But I think it's impossible to manipulate someone who is abiding in the I am, because in the I am there are no thoughts, just pure looking, pure existing, right? So that I find also pretty cool. It's kind of a hack to really not fall for anything or get manipulated anymore, right? And so I think this is it's a longer video, but I think it's a good thing to make also longer videos. And I'm looking forward to just going with the flow and making short videos or long videos. But I think long videos are good because it's good to always come back, to the point, not just hit one little nugget, because it's about cutting down a tree. I had this cutting down a tree analogy. Like, we have to all the time remember, tune into the I am, tune in, see if we are existing, not just in good times, also in bad times, mostly in bad times actually, in order to really make progress in that, right? Because a tree, if you cut it a little bit and then you leave it, it grows back together, right? So the tree, I mean, he doesn't it's an analogy for this being identified with an object or multiple objects in the matrix, right? So this is the tree, right? So we want to cut that down. But if you just tune into the I am once a month, it grows back mostly, right? But if we cut the tree multiple times a day, it will fall. And so that is the analogy. And so I think longer videos are actually better, at least for myself, even though I kind of assume that most people have tuned out of the video by now, but I don't really do it for others. So yeah, so I will just stop it here. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can write a comment.